Well, you see, that's the whole point, is the word lie needs to be defined. Sometimes not telling the truth, all of the truth, is your moral obligation. And you have a moral obligation to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth at all times to anyone who asks you. You would say, that's not in the Bible. The moral thing to do is for me not to tell you. You ain't getting nothing out of me. Those issues relating to whether you have a moral obligation to tell the whole truth at all times to everyone, that needs to be answered by pointing out you don't. You do not owe them the truth. And see, that's another fallacy. People run around thinking life is just, and they run around thinking you owe the truth to everyone. You don't. That's what the Bible teaches.
That was from Morey's available audio tape from the REF, catalog number J54.
If someone tells you ahead of time that they don't believe that it's wrong to lie, can you believe them for anything they say after that? If someone tells you they believe it's all right to lie if they get in a pinch, how can you believe them anyway? At any time.
In this one, Truth Seekers with Bob Morey of the Research and Education Foundation says, urgent warning, emergency alert, extremely confidential. And he goes all through here talking about full financial accountability from the Wessels have been refused and ignored. We're doing all these things. He says our attorneys are now preparing to file a lawsuit to recover ministry funds. And the Wessels are the primary defendants. In the next paragraph, which I find very interesting, the Wessels are claiming the ministry owes them more than $30,000 for office supplies and furniture. No such expenditures were ever requested, approved, or authorized, nor were receipts or verification of these expenses ever presented to the ministry by the Wessels.
Now, this is the form that's required to be filed. It's 990 EZ, and the government requires this to be returned, or this form to be filed as a return of an organization that's exempt from income tax. And what it does is just give more or less a financial report of what that organization is doing by way of handling money. And at the bottom line of this, Morey, and he's the one that filed this thing here, he's got an acknowledgement of a loan, and it's to Larry Wessels and Gary Wessels, two different items there, and the total amount comes to $32,088. What is that?
Just so they would have a balance sheet to show everything. And here the loans payable are again for the second time in the tax return. So it appears twice. So if they say they missed it, I mean, I did everything but highlight it.
It has the documentation on here about the money owed, almost $33,000. And lo and behold, if the camera can move in on this, look at this. It's signed by who else but Robert A. Morey. It's dated 3/29/93. So he signed it March 29, 1993. Gary, you were the preparer on this form.
Right. I also want to mention that the records now, all the books and all the papers are in the possession of Anne Morey, who's the wife of Robert Morey.
And also the chairman of the board of the Research and Education Foundation. So he states in a signed document that he not only owes us the money, but all the records and substantiation for this were kept in his wife's possession. So they act like they don't know anything, and yet they, right on their own form, they claim this is done, and the records have been filed with, or on file with his wife.
So that officially acknowledged the debt that he owed to you two men, and then this agreement of '94, they agree they pay you $10,000 up front, and then they're going to pay you $5,000 within 90 days, and then they talk you into making some kind of a donation of the remaining amount.
Well, let's get into the agreement of the parties. One last thing I want to mention, just for anyone listening to everything we've said, the EIN number for the REF, for anyone that wants to contact the IRS to obtain these records is 22-26-93-46-3. That's 22-26-93-46-3. You write to IRS and you will get these documents.
What is an EIN number?
Employer identification.
Yeah, employer, it says right here.
Identification number.
Right. You give this number,
right,
and you can obtain from a federal agency these documents
and
we're talking about.
Understand, this is not his personal return. This is the organization's return.
That's right.
Research and education.
And see, it says this form is open to public inspection.
Right.
Because it's a return of organization exempt from income tax.
Right. It's a public thing because this is a nonprofit organization, and all nonprofit organizations are required to make public this kind of information if they fall into that category that REF falls into.
Right.
Well, hello, I'm Larry Wessels with Dan Rusma. Dan, I'm so glad you're here with me right now so we can talk about a few things. And I do have a few questions to ask you, and with your permission, I'll begin to ask you some questions, and you just answer as you feel led to answer, honestly, of course.
All right.
Could you just describe the kind of work you did for REF?
Well, basically, I mean, I worked on most of the productions that we did whenever it was done in Austin, as well as even some of them in my home. Dr. Morey flown into town. We did some shows in the house here. We did shows in the studio at Christ Memorial Baptist Church. We did shows at the Access facility, Austin Cablevision Access facility.
But up until the break in May of 1994 between myself and Mr. Morey,
Right.
Was he writing you checks for your video work, or was someone else writing you checks for all the work you did those years?
Well, I believe you wrote the checks out.
Right, so I was faithfully paying you all those years, and then after the break, and
then Dr. Morey paid me.
Then he paid you faithfully for the remaining time. So you were just paid by whoever when it came to REF.
Yeah.
So you're talking almost a 5-year span. Mr. Morey never indicated anything to you that any of your work was unauthorized, either part of it or all of it.
He never told me about that or called me. He never, in any phone conversations that I've had with him, he has never pointed to me and said to me, you did things that were not authorized. He may have said that Larry authorized me to do things that were not authorized, but he never told me they were not authorized.
Okay.
So he may have said some videos were unauthorized that Larry had me do, but for the most part, I think most everything really was authorized. You know, like I said before, he's in most of the videos.
Okay. Here is the 1992 REF catalog put out by Mr. Morey. Did you work on many of the videos listed in this catalog? This is Mr. Morey's video. You've seen it before. In fact, you're even in the staff box.
Yeah.
The videos, let's see here, should come up right there. Cults, Isms, and Schisms.
I produced and edited that one.
Number 2.
I did that one, I did that one.
Topical videos with Pastor Bullock.
I did basically all of those.
Analysis of the United Pentecostal Church with Bob L. Ross and Mark McNeil. Well, the key is just scanning through a lot of these. You did a lot of them. Islam lecture at the University of Texas. Either produced them or edited them.
Or produced and edited them.
Did it all.
Most of them, looks like most of them I produced and edited.
Okay, just a large number of videos here in the catalog you're familiar with.
Right.
Perhaps not all. Some of these are clearly listed. They were done at the John Ankerberg Show, but
sure.
But
and he gave Dr. Morey permission to use them, and I edited a lot of them.